On today's show, with the holiday break beginning, it's the unofficial midterm report cards for every Ottawa Senators player.
And we look at the reality of how those players are doing and what our expectations are for everyone moving forward.
This is Brady Kachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get started with a big return on FanDuel. New customers who place a $5 bet and win will get started with $250 in bonus bets. Again, that's if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today is Monday, December 23rd, and Pillsy, the 6-game win streak is over, and now it's time to reset and recover before a busy second half.
Yeah, the Ottawa Senators weren't able to make it 7, Ross, a 3-1 loss at the hands of the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton, but there's not really much from the game to talk about, Ross, other than the big story is Linus Ullmark did not start the second period after playing the first. Sens fans were in a panic trying to figure out what happened. From what Travis Green has said after the game, it seems like there was a tweak or a strain or something going on with Linus Ullmark's back, so they didn't want to push it. Again, Brandon Piller, not a doctor, but I'm going to be optimistic and say the Christmas break, a little rest, a little relaxation, a little bit of time with the family. He's going to be better, and he's going to be in Winnipeg up against the Jets when they play their next game. So let's not panic too much here, guys.
The Ottawa Senators are off until Friday is the next time they'll skate here in Winnipeg. Now, Belleville plays on Thursday, and the Ottawa Senators, who knows if this is a paper transaction or if they will play in that game on Boxing Day, but Levi Meriläinen, Zach Ostapchuk, and Cole Reinhardt have all been reassigned to the Belleville Senators. So that's your news and notes. For a deeper dive on last night's game, check out the postcast because we are on to midterms. It's the ranking of every player in the organization. And the way we did these rankings was based versus expectation. So some players who have had decent seasons, maybe it's not reflected in their alphanumerical report, but it does, I think, paint a better picture because you expect certain players to be producing offense. You expect certain players to be good on the penalty kill. So with that in mind, let's start as a goalie-friendly show in net with Linus Ullmark. Really a tale of two seasons for Linus Ullmark. So how do you negotiate that all into one thought?
Well, I think, Ross, I'm going to look at Linus Ullmark's season as a whole here. So just looking at his numbers, 22 games started. He's got a 12-7-2 record, a 2.38 goals against average, a 915 save percentage, and 3 shutouts, and an assist on an overtime game-winning goal. So for me, Ross, this is pretty much what I expected of Linus Ullmark, and what I expected of Linus Ullmark was to bring Vezina caliber goaltending to this team that hasn't even been able to find average goaltending. So I think I'm a little higher on Linus Ullmark. Everybody knows Linus Ullmark. That's my guy. So that might reflect in my grading versus you. But how did you feel about Linus Ullmark?
So you went with what, an A minus?
I gave him an A like that.
Okay.
I think I had high expectations for him. And sure, you can point to the start of the season, but I think I give him a bit of a little bit of a leash because moving countries, new team, he's got a young family, lots of stuff going on. He was in Boston for a while. He was very comfortable there, obviously. So I decided give him a little bit of a break there. And then what we've seen the last stretch here has been nothing short of amazing. So honestly, Ross, it would be an A+ for me if he didn't have a little bit of a tough time starting. So for me, Linus Ullmark gets an A.
Yeah, okay. He was average in October and a 904 save percentage in 5 starts. He was straight up bad in November, an 878 save percentage in 9 games. But then he's been so incredible in December, 7-0-1 with a 956 save percentage. So I went with a B+. I think he's exceeded slightly the expectations as a whole with a 915 save percentage. But I just can't get that Philly game out of my mouth. I mean, you get those 2 points there, and the game against Vancouver at home as well. There's just been too many games with a sub 900 save percentage for me to say he's been incredible, but of late, of course. And if this continues, it'll be an A+ by the end of the year. I just think he ran out of time before the midterms. He was cramming before midterms, and he did well enough to get not only a passing grade, but a B+ is a good. Hey, if I got a B+ in school, that's a real nice mark. So when we look at all in all, he has done well. So I'll go with a B+ for Linus Ullmark, and now we go to Anton Forsberg. Forsy, great guy, works hard, loves the game, but has struggled in too many of his starts this year.
Yeah, I agree, Ross. Certainly hasn't been a year that Anton Forsberg was hoping for. And that's the thing. Like, we were hoping that Linus Ullmark was going to be a guy that elevated the play of goaltenders in Ottawa. And then Anton Forsberg would just kind of have to pick up the back-to-back games and a game here or there in between Linus Ullmark starts. But he just simply has not been good enough. Again, I think I gave him slightly better grade. I gave Anton Forsberg a D+. He does have 2 shutouts in there. And I know having 2 shutouts and then playing basically terrible every other game is not great, but I gave him a little bit of a boost with the 2 shutouts there.
Yeah, and fair enough. The only other game he played well other than the 2 shutouts was the loss against the New Jersey Devils, where he had a .914 save percentage, 32 saves in that one. But there's just been too many stinkers. I went with D-. I was flirting with a straight up F here, which I didn't give anybody, but 4 wins in 11 games. You just need better. And the last game was the biggest no-no for me. 3 goals on 12 shots and getting beat clean from Kyle Palmieri in the third period. Like, you got to get something on it. At least create a rebound and some havoc if you're going to allow the goal. But just being beat too often straight up on shots this year. He got pulled in his first start of the season against the LA Kings. Like, it just hasn't been good enough. And I hate harping on it because I think he's an awesome dude. And clearly the guys love him and want to work hard for him. But he's lost 4 of his last 5 starts, 6 of his last 8 starts. It's just, it hasn't been good enough. So I'm going to go with a D- for Anton Forsberg. Let's go to the defense now. Jake Sanderson, the most time on ice for any player on this team outside of goalies. What do you think of his first 34 games?
Disappointing, Ross. Like, when we did our organizational value rankings, you and I had a heated debate who is the second most valuable player on this team behind Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, or Jake Sanderson. I banged the table for Jake Sanderson being like he's a #1 defenseman. He is the perfect example of stability and being calm, cool, and collected. He makes so many great little plays that Sens fan, when you're watching the game, you're like, man, Jake Sanderson's so good. Even though he might end up on the score sheet with no goals, no points, you're like, that was an incredible game by Sanderson because he's so good defensively. He's so good at transitioning the puck up the ice. His defensive play, he shuts things down, especially when he's with Artem Zub. We haven't had much of that this season, Ross. Apart from the couple games where he strung along a couple points, especially recently up against Vancouver, where he had 3 points, including the game winner in overtime. I just not only haven't sat there and been like, wow, Sanderson's so good. I've been like, what the heck is going on with Jake Sanderson? And I know Sens fans are probably slamming their steering wheel right now, being like, it's because he's with Hamonic, Pilsy. But even when he was with Artem Zub, things weren't looking good. And I'm not putting all of Sanderson's struggles on Hamonic. There's been some clear mental lapses for him in the defensive zone as well. So for me, Ross, and it pains me to do this, based on expectations, I gave Jake Sanderson a C-.
I think I gave him the little Hamonic bump where I went with a C+. I understand your frustration with it, and hopefully he's rounding into form now after that 3-point game against the Canucks. He's up to 20 points in 34 games. Remember, his career high is 38. Like, he's still on pace to have the most points he's ever had in a season. And obviously it helps now with that little push, but I'd like to see a better defensive overall game from Jake Sanderson, and we'll see if and when Artem Zub can come back into the lineup and hopefully be a better version of himself that we saw earlier this year, that it'll help Jake Sanderson. Otherwise, they might have to go out on the trade market and bring someone in because he's still only 22 years old, will be for the entirety of this season, and he's averaging the most time on ice of anyone this team. So he's blocking a ton of shots. He's got 68 blocks already this year, 72 shots on goal, and just 2 goals, but 20 points again, but dash 13 and has looked too lost at times in his own defensive zone. So I went with a C+ for Jake Sanderson's game. Now we move on to Thomas Chabot. We're going by time on ice is how we're ordering this for the D-core. Thomas Chabot, I gave a B+ to. I think that he's showing a little bit better than what we've always expected from Thomas Chabot. But if you're going with versus his last year, it would be an A+, right? Like he has elevated his game a lot, but he also was further down than I think Senators fans would have wanted. So there's been a correction to the mean, but I don't think he's wowed. I think he's been good. He's been really good. But remember, he's making $8 million. He should be good. So I went with a B+ for Thomas Chabot.
I'm with you on that one, Ross. We both have Thomas Chabot at a B+. This is like if Thomas Chabot was making $6 million, I think that would be the sweet spot for him. Obviously, he signed that big ticket. He was one of the first players after Colin. Wait, was it after Colin White? He signed that deal?
Yes, right around the same. He might have been first. Remember they had that Spider-Man meme of him going in and getting it? The great Craig Medaglia had this awesome, and Woodsy had this great video ready for the Thomas Chabot signing. But yeah, it was a little expensive now looking back. And obviously we had the Eugene Melnyk classic backloaded contract. So Shabby's making $10 million in real money for the next couple seasons. And he's been awesome. Like he's got 16 points, so he's actually got 4 less points.
Minus, Ross.
Well, yeah, we'll get to one of the reasons why he's obviously settled in the pair he's in. But no, happy with Chabot. And I think one thing too about Chabot versus expectation, Bills, he stayed healthy. He's played every game. Like that hasn't always been the case for Shabby.
Yeah, now Shabby's problem comes at the end of the year. Typically that's when he gets injured. So knock on wood, fingers crossed that doesn't happen again. But I think Sens fans, I don't think there's anyone that's like, oh man, Thomas Chabot has been amazing. And I don't think there's anyone that's been like, oh man, he's been absolute garbage. So I think a B+ because he's now part of Ross, and we've referenced this a couple times. Both of us view that Chabot and Jensen pair as the top pair on this team now based on Sanderson's declining play. So B+, I think, is the perfect grade for Thomas Chabot.
Again, let us know all your grades in the comments. Would love to see some people go the entire distance. I think we've got 24 players overall on our list. So let us know in the comments on YouTube who your letter grades are for each player here at the unofficial mark. We're 34 games in out of 82. We understand that that's not exactly halfway. There's still ground to be covered. But the next time there's a big break before games between games is going to be at the Four Nations, and Ottawa will have played 56 games by then. So let's keep it rolling. No, we're definitely not math guys, but let's keep it rolling after a quick word from our friends. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Mary J's. Mary J's is the locally owned cannabis dispensary in the Ottawa area, and they got 4 stores you can check out. Go to Riverside South, Orleans, Greeley, and Russell. Mary J's offers the best and newest products in the market, and they're adding new stuff to the menu every single week to keep it fresh. They got competitive pricing. In fact, they're going to price match any store in Ottawa. That means you're guaranteed to get the best price around when you shop at Mary J's. And they have awesome customer service by having some of the friendliest bud tenders around who are always ready to help you out. One of the owners, Dashy, absolute beauty, diehard Sens fan. He's usually at one of the stores, so go say what up to Dashy. Pick his brain about the Sens and all the latest, greatest products that Mary J's has to offer. And check out the website and get yourself a loyalty card. It's Mary J's Dispensary.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. If you're looking to make real money on sports action, head over to our friends at Prize Picks. And here's how Prize Picks work. You just pick more or less for a number of player stats, and boom, they're in your bucket. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Pick. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30 million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. So when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. This week on Prize Picks, look, I'm eyeing this slate today, 13 games. And look, I might be going a little bit more with my heart than my head. We're going against the Rangers. So I'm looking at Jack Hughes for more than 4 shots on goal. I think he had 13 the other night. So I'm looking at Jack Hughes as a guy who could come up big today. And I'm also going to look at Alexander Ovechkin once he gets back, of course. But right now, in the meantime, it's all about Dylan Strome with the Washington Capitals. So I'm going to go for an assist for Dylan Strome and over shots on goal for Jack Hughes. It's that simple to make my picks and have fun with my friends while potentially cashing out. So download the app and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, Billsy, back to our special edition of Locked On Senators, where we are taking a look at all players and the head coach of the Ottawa Senators and assigning them a letter grade, Pilsy. It's Professor Pilsy on today's show, and I will be here as well. We are on to, I think, the most impressive player on this roster versus expectations. It's the only A+ that I have. I don't think Nick Jensen could have done anything better in the first 34 games. This guy's been a perfect complementary piece. He's had moments where he jumps into the rush and starts doing offensive magic himself. And then you look at it too, and he's even putting up some points this season as well. Nick Jensen, 9th on the team with 13 points, plus 17, man. Just an absolute stud back there.
Ross, it is rare in the hockey world where a trade works out perfectly for both teams, right? Like, I think Capitals fans are probably like, can't believe we got Jacob Chychrun from the Sens. This guy's lighting up for us. And Sens fans are like, can't believe we got rid of Jacob Chychrun and we got Nick Jensen. So that's awesome. I was not a Nick Jensen fan when he first came over here, first couple preseason games. But once the regular season got started, I flipped my opinion on him very quickly. He's been the exact defenseman the Ottawa Senators have been looking for years, and the exact defenseman that Thomas Chabot needs to play his game effectively. I gave Jensen an A. I think this is like when you're trying to find a right-hand shot defenseman that can fit into your lineup seamlessly like this, Nick Jensen has done a great job. So yeah, I'm not quite A+ level, Ross, but I don't blame you at all, because versus expectations, there's not really much that he could do to be doing better than he is right now.
When the Ottawa Senators made the trade for Nick Jensen, I tweeted out, if you like Artem Zub, you'll love Nick Jensen. Let's get to Artem Zub, who's been suffering multiple injuries. He had the concussion early in the year and then broke his foot. He's played 11 games. He's -7, has 2 assists. Frankly, just hasn't been good enough. And you wonder if there's some lingering effects when you miss time early and you come back, but he just didn't look like himself. He looked passive. He didn't, box out the way that we expect him to. And he was playing a little bit of a fumbly game. And for him, his calling card is being stable back there. So just hasn't been that great. I went with a C for Artem Zub.
Yeah, I went with a C-, Ross, kind of matching Jake Sanderson there, because we talked about it. Those two were going to be stapled together as the shutdown pair, and we had high expectations of them based on what they were able to do in the past. And I don't know, Ross, maybe it's one of those things where the injuries are really starting to catch up to Zub. Like, he's off with a fractured foot right now. He had a fractured jaw. He has had concussions. Like, there's just been so many injuries that I don't want to say it's made him kind of gun shy, but maybe when those injuries start piling up, you're not able to be as aggressive, whether it's mental or physically. And that's where he's at his best, when he's playing that hard-nosed physical game, boxing out, like you mentioned. So it's been disappointing, but I think hopefully when Artem Zub comes back, he gets a chance to play with Sanderson, and both of them have an opportunity to redeem themselves and elevate their play to what we're used to seeing.
Not saying that it's completely connected, but Zub got hurt in the Vancouver game, the last game of the 5-game winless streak. They're 10-3-1 since he got hurt in that game. Moving on to Travis Hamonic, D-. I'm not beating the dead horse anymore. He just hasn't been good. It's not his fault. He shouldn't be in the top 4 in an NHL D-core, and he's playing too much. He's fumbling the puck too much. He's missing the net on shots too much. The one thing you can say about him is he's been physical, which you like to see, but I mean, yeah, I got nothing more on Travis Hamonic. I'm so exhausted by this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key here, Ross, is versus expectations. That's why I went with a D for him. Like, everybody except Travis Green and the coaching staff knows that this guy should not be a top 4 defenseman, yet he's there every single night stapled to who should be your number one defenseman. So I'm not as big on the Travis Hamonic hate as I think other Sens fans are, just because this is kind of what I've expected. But really, this guy should be a bottom pair guy, and he should be in and out of the lineup playing maybe half of the games at best, switching in with Jacob Bernard-Docker. So we'll see how this goes when Artem Zub comes back to the lineup, Ross. And if it remains the same, then I'll join you on the anger level there.
Yeah, that's fair. And when you look at him and Jake Sanderson, they've played over 350 minutes together at 5-on-5 this year. Jake Sanderson's numbers are much better without than with. I don't think that'll surprise anybody. And that goes to the tune with their expected goals percentage at 5-on-5 when they're on the ice together. With each other, they're at 42.5. Without Sanderson, Hamonic's actually at 52. And Sanderson's at 56 when he's not stapled to Travis Hamonic. So that's all we got to say about Travis Hamonic as we move on to Tyler Kleven. I went with a B-. I think that he's been perfectly fine. There's been a couple games where it hasn't gone his way. The Vancouver game comes to mind, and then the 2 games at home against Vegas and Vancouver. But he's still in the B's for me. Like he's to me is meeting expectations as a young guy who I still think has a lot of upside, and a guy who's going to be a great NHL player. I just think he's been perfectly fine in a limited bottom pair role to start the year.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ross. I went with a B for Kleven just because I think I give him a little bit of grace. Being a rookie defenseman is very difficult to do. And I think there's not really nights where he's amazing and not really nights where he's really bad, in my opinion. I think he's just been able to kind of float on the line where we want him to be. So I give him a B.
We also grouped together Jacob Bernard-Docker. I've got him as a B-. I see you've got him as a B. But to me, very similar. Like they're playing in limited roles and they're doing just fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is the type of player you want JBD to be. It's great that he found a partner with Tyler Kleven, the old Nodak Sens connection. You love to see that. And from a third pair, Ross, you just want them not to make too many mistakes, play a physical game, and be able to shut down other teams' bottom sixes. And I think they've both done a decent job of that. So I went with B's for both of them.
Okay, let's move on to the forwards after the break. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways you can pick up the W. I love betting on the over-under, same-game parlays, and finding some fun futures. Not only can you bet on who's going to win the game, but FanDuel has bets for who's going to score touchdowns, how many points each team is going to score on their own, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, Pilsy, as we move on to the forwards on the unofficial report cards at midterm. Again, let us know in the comments your thoughts, not only on our marks, but we want to see yours on the Ottawa Senators. 34 games into the season, the Senators have a playoff spot by 3 points. So it's not doom and gloom. This is just reality versus expectations. Heck, we've had a lot of A's and B's so far, so I shouldn't be trying to, put a little lipstick on this one. I think it's a very fair conversation to have at this point in the season. Starting with the top ice time earner up front, Tim Stützle. I've got him as an A-. I think there's been the only thing that's stopping him from being an A or an A+ for me, Pilsy, is there's certain games I just want to see him take over a little bit more and dominate. So that's his goal. Remember, he told Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick back in the day on 32 Thoughts, they said, what does a good Tim Stützle game look like? He said domination. Yep. He's been great, but he hasn't dominated games the way I think he has the ability to night in, night out.
I give him an A, Ross, because I've just been so impressed with how Tinted Timmy has kind of rebranded his game. Last year, everybody's getting on him for the diving. He's a soft player, blah, 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 blah. This year, he's playing a physical game. Now, I know in the last couple games, he hasn't been throwing his body around as much, but he's played physical. He's played much better defensively. We haven't seen the same kind of diving from him. I think the only time he's fallen down is when he's just skating too hard and blows a tire. And I've really liked what he's done. He's had so many multi-point games. He leads this team in points, Ross, with 39 points in 34 games. So for me, this is what I expect from Tim Stützle, kind of similar to Linus Ullmark. This is what I expect, and he's basically met those high expectations. So an A for me.
Yeah, I mean, he's A- for me. Like, he's exceeded expectations, but I believe in you, Timmy. I know you're an absolute superstar in the league, and I want to see him continue on that path and shoot the puck more, please.
Yes.
Tim Stützle is shooting 16% right now, but only has 69 shots in 34 games. Bill, that's 2 shots a game. If he can add a single extra shot per game, we could really be cooking with something special here. Although he does already have 11 goals, only had 18 all of last year. So on the right track. Claude Giroux, I was a little surprised to see second among all forwards in ice time this year. His ice time, though, has reduced in recent months. I gave it a B. He's hit expectations for me, but it's not like he's wowing every night like he did in his first 2 years in Ottawa.
Yeah, what did I go for Giroux? Yeah, I gave him a B as well, Ross. He's certainly, at 37 years old, he certainly slowed down, Ross, but where I kind of maintained that level is the faceoffs. I mean, he's 61.7% in the faceoffs, so is what you need. And honestly, for me, Ross, as long as he's not a liability and he's still able to chip in points when he has time and space and set up plays, his main thing is snapping back draws, which he's doing, and being a veteran presence in the room, which is exactly what this team needs, and he's done that. So a perfectly fine B for Claude Giroux.
And not only does he lead the league in face-off percentage, he leads it also when shorthanded, which has been a huge factor in Ottawa's PK becoming elite over the I know they let in a goal against the Oilers. They snapped a great streak, but they're still really figuring it out on the PK, and he's a huge part of that. I'd like to see him get a look or two on the top power play unit would be my hope, but that's not on Claude Giroux.
But who do you take out then? That's
Josh Norris, because he doesn't shoot the puck. All right, let's get to Josh Norris then. B- for me. He's had flashes. The Detroit game, scores 2 goals and a 2-1 win. He's put on this earth to score goals. He's fast, but there's been too many games where he's just kind of invisible out there. So still around expectations. He's in the B category, but I just know there's more to his game if he's going to be a $7.95 million player.
Fair, Ross. B- for me as well. It's like the Hamonic decision, Ross. The coaching staff, they're doing a great job, but it just blows my mind that it's so obvious to us how this team could be more effective, and they're not putting it in place. Why is he not in his one-timer spot on the power play?
And when he is, he doesn't shoot. He was in it last night, but he just doesn't shoot the puck.
Yeah, I guess. But it just seems like that he should just be there. Like, set up a chair
around
there.
it.
And don't even move. Just stay right there, stick up, and just stay like that the whole time, ready to one-time it, because that's his most effective play and his most effective attribute. So I don't know why they're not doing that, but I agree with you. When he's not scoring goals, not a whole lot else. Although, let's give him a little bit of credit. I think he's been decent on the penalty kill.
And on the faceoff circle, he went 9 for 10 against Vancouver on Saturday night in that one. But, dude, he has less shots than Timmy. He has 67 shots on goal in 34 games.
Okay, that's crazy. I did not realize that. Yeah, you got to be ripping that pill, Josh.
Exactly. So, Josh Norris for Christmas. Let's get this guy shot back, firing on all cylinders. Drake Batherson. I went with an A- for Batherson. The points are obviously there. He's playing a more physical, committed 200-foot game. So I love what I've been seeing from Drake.
Yep, I went for an A, Ross. I think him being able to kind of surprise everyone and quietly be a point-per-game player has really impressed me. 34 points in 34 games. So I like what Batherson is doing, and I just think the line he's been on, unless it was Brady, Josh, and Batherson, they haven't been able to click properly either. I think maybe you give him some time with Timmy. I think that's a good combo for both of those guys.
Brady Tkachuk, shocked that he's 5th among all Ottawa Senators forwards in ice time. Now, I'm assuming, it doesn't change that much. I was going to say because he left the game to get stitched up, but he only missed like a period.
He didn't miss much, yeah.
I got it as an A-. This guy's been clutch. He's been a leader. He's exceeded my expectations as a 200-foot game, and I think the best is yet to come for Brady, but an A- for me.
I got him as an A, Ross. I mean, he leads the team in goals. He's got 8 power play goals. He's got 4 game-winning goals. He's got 3 overtime game-winning goals. He's doing well in the face-offs, 53.6%. Like, again, high expectations for Brady, and he's met them, and he's been the leader that this team has needed. When all those trade rumors are going around, he just flicks them off like a bug on his shoulder. It doesn't affect him too much. So I love what Brady's doing. He's the captain of this team for a reason.
Yeah, love that. Shane Pinto, I got him as a B-, and it would have been a C- about 2 weeks ago, but he's now producing offensively, and the 200-foot game's always been there for Pinto. I think his line of late has been some of the best shifts night in, night out that the Ottawa Senators have had. He's got 6 goals, 3 assists in 26 games, but has been heating up of late. So I like Shane Pinto, and I got him as a B-.
I'm a little lower on Shane, Ross. I got him as a C+. Like, when he signed that bridge deal and the way his season went last year, I think people had a lot more expectations, myself included. You're right. He's been heating up lately, but I mean, even still, we're looking at 9 points in 26 games. Like, I don't know. I would like to see more from Pinto. And I think that third line finally started clicking. Cousins, Pinto, Amadio. But with Amadio out, that's going to shake things up. So hopefully Pinto can keep it going here. But I have higher expectations for Shane Pinto than what he's doing right now. I'll put it that way.
Fair. So what about Ridley Gregg then?
I got Ridley Gregg as a C. I really thought this was going to be a year where Ridley Gregg would take a step, and he's been given the opportunities to take a step, Ross. He was in the top 6 for quite a while and then back on the 4th line. He's been physical, but he's not mixing it up enough for me. Like, if you're not going to be getting those points, I want to see you getting under players' skin. He doesn't really do that enough for me. Like,
Couple bad penalties too. The too many in LA, and then a double minor for high sticking in a time in the game where you're chasing it already down 1. Like, that was a bad time to be irresponsible with your stick.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's still a young player, but for me, Ross, I'm very curious as to where the Ottawa Senators see their future with Ridley Gregg. And I don't know if it's a hot take or an unpopular opinion, but if the Ottawa Senators are looking to improve their team, I think Ridley Gregg is probably a trade chip that they could use to try to get more veteran players in the lineup.
I know, but you got to be careful if you're doing that, man, because he does have a ton of upside too.
But that's why he's valuable to trade, right? Where does he end up on this team where he's able to meet the expectations if Shane Pinto's around? I know he plays wing a lot of the time, but he's not a top 6 forward. I don't think he's going to be an amazing bottom 6 guy quite yet. It's going to take a little more time for him. So for me, I think he's one of those guys that has value, that if you're really in a good spot come trade deadline, if you want to get a more veteran defenseman or try to find that elusive 6th forward to fit in your top 6, he's a guy I would use that has value.
I'd like to see him play center before I make any rash decision on him. They've been playing him at the wing exclusively.
But then what? He's going to be a 4th line center?
No, I mean,
where's he going to play center then?
We could do a whole show on that, but I'd still like to see Norris move over at some point and try it out if you can get him rolling, or maybe Norris is the trade chip if somebody's willing to take it on. And obviously salary would come into play there, but yeah, and then is Pinto a 2nd line center? Then you'd have to have that conversation if you're moving on from Josh Norris. But lots of moving parts potentially later this year. But for Ridley Gregg, I went with a C+. I like the way he's committed defensively, and yeah, I would still like to see him produce more offense and be a bit more of a pest. Michael Amadio skyrocketed up to a B-. I thought the start of his year was very underwhelming, but he's been awesome of late. So to me, he's right back at expectations.
I got him at a C+, Ross. I mean, he got a 3-year, $2.6 million deal, so not breaking the bank by any means, but certainly there's expectations there when you get the term. I think he's been good on that 3rd line, but I just what is Michael Amadio's strength? What does he do well? I'm not really sure. And I really thought coming over from Vegas, this is a guy that was going to be able to play up the lineup once in a while when he needed. And when Ridley Gregg was up there, I thought they should have given Michael Amadio a chance because he had success playing with more talented guys in Vegas, but that wasn't really the case. And I'm just not sure what to expect from Amadio. So I don't want to dog on the guy, but he hasn't really wowed me, and he's been okay.
David Perron, I've got not available. Has played 9 games, has gone through what no human should go through off the ice, and I'm glad to hear it seems like things are looking up and healthy for their family and their newborn. Then he suffers an injury. He's been out of the lineup. I'm not going there with a letter grade for David Perron, who has yet to record a point with the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, not applicable for me as well, Ross. Only 9 games, no points, lots of struggles. I shouldn't say struggles, but lots of things going on personally for him off the ice. And now he's got that back injury to deal with. I'm not sure what's going to happen there, Ross, but I will say, man, it would be nice to have that $4 million in cap space to have someone that's contributing on your lineup. That's all I'll say.
Could not agree more. Noah Gregor, I went with a B+, man. His speed is noticeable out there. The Sens really don't have a whole lot of speed on their wings up front, so he is a very valuable piece for a league minimum deal. I went with a B+, and honestly, I thought about going A- just based on his league minimum salary. Like, he's scored a shorthanded goal already this year. He's noticeable on the penalty kill. He's got 6 points in 29 games so far, but he's never going to be a point guy. I guess this is what notices, though. 2 of his 4 goals have been game winners this year for Noah Gregor.
Wow.
But I went with a B+. I love the speed element that he brings.
Yeah, I went with a B. I think he's been kind of the player I expected. Yeah, the speed is there. You mentioned it. I would like to see him get more time on the third line, Ross. Maybe bump Cousins down to the fourth line. Not that Cousins has been bad or not worthy of playing on that spot, but I just think with Shane Pinto, if you can get him a guy with that speed, it can help transition the puck up the ice a little more, and then hopefully you spend a little more time in the offensive zone. So a B for me for Noah Gregor.
I went with a B for our next player as well, Nick Cousins. I think he's been a lot more pesty the last number of games, scored a beautiful goal against the Oilers, drew a penalty in back-to-back games. I don't know how he got a roughing penalty in the game last night, but he was brutal at the start of the year, took that awful penalty in Vegas that really cost him the game.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been a lot better. So he'll be a B for me right now. And if he keeps it up, might be a B+ by the end of the year.
Yeah, a B for me as well, Ross. He's been pesky. He's been getting under player skin, which is why you brought him in. And he's the kind of player where, look, there's entry-level, fourth-line type guys, but everybody knows when these guys get time and space, they're elite hockey players, and he showed that last night. Stripped the puck from Bouchard, little backhand, forehand deke, and went shelf on Stuart Skinner. Perfect execution. So he's the type of guy where if he's in the right spot, he's not going to make a mistake.
Yeah, our friend Kevin Lee pointed out, being like, man, I've been impressed with his finishing ability, and I would echo that statement. He's able to put the puck in the net when he gets opportunities. Adam Gaudette, speaking of putting the net when you get opportunities, 13 goals for Adam Gaudette so far this season, and he's barely playing. Like, this guy's tied for second on the team in goals, and he's averaging 10 minutes and 53 seconds per game. Look, I was banging the table, get this guy into the top 6 just to give him more chances. He's not a top 6 player at the NHL level. No. He's been very opportunistic. Is he still shooting? Yeah, he's shooting 31% right now. Wow. 13 goals on 42 shots. Like, you can't argue with results. He's an A for me versus expectations. This guy was meant to start in Belleville, Pillsy.
Yeah, an A for me as well, Ross. Like, even when we talked about it, like, let's bring ourselves back when we were talking about training camp battles. He was kind of the third guy, wasn't he? Like, me and you had Jan Yannick and Noah Gregor and Zach Ostapchuk, I think, ahead of Adam Gaudette to make it, and he makes it, and he busts the door down. That's another guy, Ross, I would like to see elevated to the third line on the right wing. Like, don't you think a line of Noah Gregor, Shane Pinto, and Adam Gaudette would have a little bit more pop than Nick Cousins and Amadio on his wings? So I wouldn't mind seeing that. But yeah, excuse me, Adam Gaudette, an A for me as well. I didn't think he was going to score 13 goals all season, let alone in the 34 game mark.
Hey, the road to 20 continues. Let's hope for that for Adam Gaudette. How about Zach Ostapchuk? Senators, by the way, are 15-6-1 with Zach Ostapchuk in the lineup this season. I went with a B plus. I think that he's just been a steady presence, limited ice time, but he's certainly getting his feet wet right now at the NHL level and not looking out of place.
Yeah, I gave him a B, Ross. I think, again, this is a perfectly fine player. I think in that fourth line role, he's been able to hold up defensively. I think he's shown big improvements from the last time he was up in the NHL, and he's getting the results for it. He's been in the lineup every single night consistently. So Zach Ostapchuk, I think he really has the makings of a consistent long-term fourth line center.
Still looking for his first NHL goal, though. So
would have
far,
been nice to get in Alberta, eh? That would have been a good story.
I know, not to be the case. 20 games so far for Zach Ostapchuk this season. Okay, two players who've played less than the rest. We'll go with Cole Reinhardt, 2 points in 6 games. I mean, he's averaging 8 minutes and 40 seconds, but credit to him for getting his first goal, 2 points. I went with a B plus for Cole Reinhardt.
Yeah, I went with a B, Ross. He's been perfectly fine. He Cole Reinhardt was a guy that I had been eyeing to be called up from Belleville because he is the standard fourth line player in the NHL and a good player in the AHL. So I know we want to get Crooker up, but if there's only a fourth line spot available, I think it makes more sense to have Cole Reinhardt playing there. I'd like to see Crooker play in a third line role if he gets the opportunity, and I believe he deserves it. But I just think Reinhardt's game is a little bit more effective for 7 to 9 minutes a night where he's just playing a physical meat and potato style game.
Speaking of which, Zach Ostapchuk is the final one. He's down in Belleville right now, but has played Zach McEwen. Sorry, who did I say?
Zach Ostapchuk.
Nice. That's on the mind. Thank you. Zach McEwen, the Wayne Gretzky of the AHL. I went with a C plus. The reason for the plus is he helped them win that game against LA. 2 goals in that game.
Hey, that's fair. And yeah.
And a fight.
I went for a C for Zach McEwen. I don't know. Maybe you know what, Ross? I'll join you with the C plus there because, based on what he's supposed to do, he was doing it, and I feel bad that he kind of got squeezed out and he's not collecting those NHL paychecks anymore. But I think once in a while, it's good to have a player like Zach McEwen in your lineup, and I wouldn't even be surprised, Ross, if later on he's called back up and is an extra.
Don't worry, Pillsy. Dorian gave him a one-way deal. He's still making $775 in the AHL.
True. Okay, yeah. Don't worry about it, Zach. Have fun in Bell Vegas.
All right, now let's finish off with the head coach, Travis Green. 34 games into his Ottawa Senators career. What are your thoughts on how he's performed?
I give him an A minus, Ross, because I would say my expectations were he was going to be like a B. Totally honest, I was a little disappointed that he was the guy they went with. You and I both wanted other candidates, but when they decided to hire him and you start learning about the way he approaches the game and you start hearing about Canucks players and people around the Vancouver Canucks when he was there, you realize that this is a guy that really stresses accountability, and that's something that this team needed. You see it. He's a hard-nosed guy. He only tells jokes once in a while, and when this team's winning, other than that, he's pretty straight-faced, and he doesn't really mess around too much, at least from what the media and the fans see. And he's done a good job of finding ways to get the most out of players. Like I'll reference Tim Stützle, like the way he's been able to get Tim Stützle to play a harder, more physical game and better defensively has really impressed me. And I think the way that the Senators, and I'm not sure how much he had to do with that, but the way they rounded out their coaching staff with obviously Daniel Alfredsson, you want to keep him around, Mike Yeo and Nolan Baumgartner. I think they have a true competent NHL coaching staff, which I don't think I would have said in years past. So I think they've done a great job, and they've found ways, Ross, to be effective on the power play, and then they've found ways to be effective on the penalty kill. Not always both at the same time, which is what you want, but they're able to do both. So I like the way this coaching staff has done so far.
And it just, you can tell that Travis Green hockey is starting to become the team's identity, which is a commitment to defense, which is not given them much when it comes to the physical battle. Ottawa's been great in the dot, and who knows whether that's the assistant coaches working after practice, the commitment for all of what they do. But in terms of expected goals against, which is, I think, a good indicator for a coach because they can't keep the puck out of the net. The goalie has to make saves. So it's how many chances you're giving up. And Ottawa's a top 10 team in fewest expected goals per 60 minutes allowed. So, I mean, to me, the mark of a good coach is how much can you suppress chances? Maybe that's because we've been following the Ottawa Senators, who have been a defensive leak for the last 8 years, but it feels like he's come in and patched up a lot of that. And I think that has to do a lot with structure. So would I like to see their power play on the road be a lot better? Obviously. Would I like to see certain lineup decisions? Yes, but nothing's ever going to be perfect when it comes to wanting a head coach to think exactly like the fan base does. So no, I went with an A- as well. I think Travis Green has been more than Sens fans would have thought at the start of when he was hired in July or June. It was June. It was before the draft. So I'm very happy with what we've seen from Travis Green. The stretch run will obviously show a lot more, but I'm happy with what I've seen so far. Pilsy, final thoughts on today's show. Chris Kreider is a healthy scratch today for the New York Rangers.
So he's getting traded.
Well, the trade freeze is on till the 27th. So talk about an awkward Christmas.
What?
They're a mess. The Rangers are an absolute mess.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ross. With the trade freeze, you're just smacking them in the face with that. The downfall of the New York Rangers needs to be studied by philosophers and documented to be looked at hundreds of years later, because this is insane what's happening to this team.
Chris Kreider's 8th all-time in games played by a New York Ranger. He's by far the longest-serving player on their team right now. 245 more games than Mika Zibanejad, who's second. Like, it's embarrassing how they're treating their players, honestly. From Jacob Trouba starting in last summer, their captain, they run him out of town. Kako, like, what an absolute mess the New York Rangers are. Kreider, would he be someone you're interested in for the Ottawa Senators?
I mean, I don't know how you make the money work. Let's start with that. But he would be the guy to be the 6th forward here. He's got the speed. He's got the veteran presence. You said, Ross, you want a finisher on Timmy's line. That would be a guy I would love to target. But again, I don't know how you make that money work.
Kreider, Stützle, Giroux as a line?
Yeah, that's nice. Because sure, Giroux's the slow player and he slows things down a bit. But in the offensive zone, I actually think that might be a good thing. And if Giroux's snapping him back and Timmy can get possession and then feed Kreider in the O-zone, I think he could have a lot of success there.
Chris Kreider had 39 goals last year, has 11 this year, but only 1 assist in 30 games, Pilsy.
Well, I mean, I don't think he likes his teammates very much. That's being clear.
Okay, we'll see how this story develops. But Chris Kreider, I need to pull up his contract. I know he's making $6.5 million. It's 6.5. I just don't know how much term is left. Dude, he's got
3 years?
2 years after this one.
Yeah, so 3 years. Yeah. I don't know. That's not terrible.
Okay.
Scored 39 goals last year, Ross. That would have led the team.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, he's making $5 million in real money this year, $5 million next year, and $4 million in the final year of his contract in real money. So, does he have trade protection?
Probably.
You would assume so. Yes, he's got a 15-team no trade list, so might have to do some negotiating on that one.
Yeah, but hey, there's a lot of good Americans on this team. Like, maybe you could sway him to come over.
All right. Well, it would be something you buy low. I don't think you're giving up a talented asset to get him. We'll see how it happens, though. I'm very intrigued by this. It's like watching a car crash.
If Drury's handing out more trade deal offers like the Kako one,
I don't think the Sens and Rangers are making any trades.
Yeah, true. Yeah, we gotta also preface it with that. I don't know how the money works, and these two teams are not exactly friendly right now.
Okay, hope you enjoyed our midterm report cards. It'll be fun to look back on these after the regular season. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. We have a Sens Central citizen on with us tomorrow. Really great conversation there. And then stay tuned for Senators Jeopardy on Christmas Day. On Thursday, we've got a World Juniors preview with Scott Wheeler. And Friday, we'll preview a back-to-back for the weekend. So just because there's no Sens hockey does not mean anything changes at LOSP. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.